Stop immediately. Authorization required for all species, except humans. The words echoed across the vast docking bay of the Orion Gate, the largest and most secure transit checkpoint in the known galaxy. Massive alien ships froze mid-motion. Engines powered down. Weapons systems went cold. Every species knew this place. Every species feared it. The Orion Gate was not just a checkpoint. It was the final barrier between the outer galaxy and the core worlds. No ship passed through without clearance. No exception. Not for emperors. Not for warlords. Not even for ancient species older than recorded history. And yet, the rule had just been spoken aloud. Except humans. A low murmur spread through the docking bay. Tentacled beings tightened their grips on control panels. Insectoid commanders clicked in agitation. Tall, crystalline entities pulsed with confused light. Even the armored Corlith warlords, who had crushed entire civilizations, stood silent. A human ship drifted forward. No authorization codes. No clearance request. No escort. Just a simple designation painted on its hull. United Human Exploratory Vessel, Wayfarer. The automated defense platforms tracked it for exactly half a second, then powered down. Gasps rippled through the bay. Commander Zelrun of the Valerian Union stared at the display in disbelief. His species had waited 3 cycles for transit approval, paid tribute, submitted biological scans, disarmed their entire fleet. And this human ship, it wasn't even scanned. Control, Zelrun demanded, his voice trembling with barely controlled anger. Explain this immediately. That vessel violated protocol. It transmitted no authorization signal. The station AI responded instantly, its tone neutral and absolute. Correction. The vessel did not violate protocol. Humans are exempt. Exempt. The word struck harder than any weapon. Zelrun slammed his clawed limb against the console. Exempt? Since when does any species receive exemption from galactic transit law? Silence followed. Then the AI spoke again. Since the Treaty of Ashen Skies. Most beings in the docking bay froze. The Treaty of Ashen Skies. A name spoken only in fragments of forgotten history. A document sealed so deeply that even high-ranking officials rarely accessed it. Many thought it was a myth. But humans clearly had not forgotten. As the human ship glided calmly through the gate, its crew relaxed, sipping beverages, chatting casually, completely unaware or unconcerned about the storm of disbelief they left behind. Commander Zelrun turned to the others. We demand answers. Why do they pass freely while the rest of us kneel? No one answered, because the truth was older than the modern galaxy, and far more terrifying. Long before the Orion Gate existed, before the core worlds united, before most current species achieved spaceflight, there had been the silence, an era erased from public records. Entire star systems vanished without warning. Not destroyed, gone. Navigation data failed. Light itself been away from certain regions. Explorers who entered never returned. The galaxy panicked. Fleets were lost. Empires collapsed. Ancient species, ones who had survived supernovas and extinction events, began to pray. They called it the Void Presence. No weapons worked. No shield mattered. No intelligence could predict it. Until humans arrived. At that time, humanity was considered insignificant, loud, emotional, short-lived, barely advanced. The Galactic Council had allowed them observer status out of curiosity, not respect. Then the Void Presence moved toward human territory. The galaxy expected humanity to vanish like the others. Instead, something impossible happened. Human ships didn't flee. They followed it. What happened next was classified under absolute black archive, but fragments survived. Human vessels entered regions where physics collapsed and returned. Human pilots reported hearing the void speak. Human scientists didn't panic, they listened. And somehow, humanity did what no one else could. They communicated with it, not through energy pulses, not through mathematics, but through intent. The Void Presence was not a conqueror. It was a guardian, a force older than the galaxy itself, tasked with preventing something far worse from entering reality. It tested civilizations, watched how they responded to the unknown. Most attacked it. Humans asked a question, and when the galaxy realized the truth, it was already too late. The Void Presence withdrew because it trusted humans, but left a warning. If humanity is ever stopped, the gate will open again. That was the day the galaxy rewrote its laws. Not out of kindness, not out of respect, out of fear. Humans became the fail-safe species. They were allowed unrestricted travel, unrestricted access, and unrestricted authority in all transit zones. Because if the galaxy ever needed them again, there could be no delays, no authorization, no bureaucracy, only access. Back in the present, Commander Zelrun watched the human ship disappear into the core worlds. Impossible, he whispered. The AI responded quietly, almost solemnly. The galaxy does not allow humans to pass freely because they are powerful. It allows them because they are necessary. The docking bay remained silent, because for the first time, every species understood the truth. Humans weren't trusted. They were required. And whatever waited beyond the gates, only humans were meant to face it. The docking bay of the Orion Gate slowly returned to motion, but the tension never left. Alien ships powered their engines back on. Control panels flickered. Officers resumed their duties. Yet every eye remained fixed on the empty space where the human vessel Wayfarer had disappeared. Commander Zelrun could not move. His species had crossed collapsing stars, survived gravity storms, and negotiated with beings made of pure energy. Yet nothing in his long career had shaken him like what he had just witnessed. Humans. No authorization. No hesitation. And the galaxy itself had stepped aside. Control, Zelrun said at last, lowering his voice. I request a private historical briefing. Full clearance. No filters. There was a pause. A long one. Then the station AI replied. Request acknowledged. Warning. Information may cause psychological distress. Zelrun swallowed. Proceed. The lights in his command chamber dimmed. The holographic displays shifted, replacing transit schedules with star maps, old ones. Very old. Entire regions were marked in black, annotated with symbols no longer used. These are restricted zones, Zelrun said. They were removed from modern navigation charts. Correct, the AI replied. Because no non-human mind can safely perceive them. Zelrun's spines rose slightly. Perceive them? The display zoomed in on a void between galaxies. A region not empty, but distorted. Light bent around it unnaturally. Sensor data twisted into impossible shapes. Most species rely on external instruments to interpret reality, the AI explained. Humans do not. Zelrun stared. That makes no sense. It did not, until humans arrived. Long before the Treaty of Ashen Skies, the galaxy had assumed one universal truth. Reality was stable, predictable, governed by rules. Every species evolved to sense the universe in limited ways, some through vision, some through energy resonance, others through probability modeling. Together, these perceptions formed the foundation of galactic science. But humans broke that assumption. Early human explorers reported things that did not exist in official sensor data. Shadows where no object was present. Sounds without vibration. Emotions triggered by empty space. At first, the Council dismissed it as primitive imagination. Then humans began to avoid disasters before they happened. Human freighters altered course hours before subspace ruptures. Human colonies evacuated days before stellar flares no instrument had predicted. Human pilots refused routes that were, by all known metrics, safe. They were always right. When questioned, humans gave the same unsettling answer. It just felt wrong. The galaxy did not like that answer. It had no equations, no data, no logic, and yet it worked. Zelrun leaned closer to the display as archived footage appeared. Grainy recordings of early joint missions. In one clip, a Valerian science vessel followed a human scout ship toward an uncharted system. Midway, the human pilot suddenly stopped. Command, I'm not going in, the human said. Valerian officers protested. Sensors showed nothing unusual. All readings were nominal. The human hesitated, then whispered, "Something's watching." The Valerian ship continued alone. It never returned. That pattern repeated again and again. Humans sensed what others could not. Not because they were stronger, but because their minds were noisier. Humans evolved on a chaotic world. Unstable climate, shifting continents, constant extinction events, predators that hunted with deception, environments that punished certainty. Human survival depended on instinct, paranoia, imagination. Traits the galaxy considered flaws, until they weren't. Humans possess an unusual cognitive trait, the AI said. They subconsciously process uncertainty as information. Zelrun's mandibles twitched. "You're saying they feel danger before it exists?" "No," the AI corrected. "They feel it while it is still deciding." The display changed again. This time, it showed the transit thresholds, regions every ship passed through when using gates like Orion. To most species, these were empty corridors of folded space. To humans, they were crowded, unstable, alive. Humans reported sensations of pressure, whispers, emotional weight, sometimes dread, sometimes calm. They learned to trust those feelings. And when the void presence appeared, the entity behind the silence, it didn't appear to human instruments first. It appeared to human minds. Zelrun's voice was barely audible. "That's why authorization doesn't apply to them." "Correct," the AI said. "Authorization systems are designed to protect species from cognitive collapse." The meaning hit him slowly. Authorization wasn't about permission. It was about safety. When non-human minds encounter higher-dimensional phenomena, the AI continued. The results include madness, identity dissolution, or total neural shutdown. Zelrun remembered the stories. Ships drifting endlessly, crews unresponsive, eyes open but minds gone. They had blamed radiation. They were wrong. Humans could pass freely because they could survive awareness. A sudden transmission interrupted the briefing. A secure channel. Human encryption. Zelrun stiffened as the image resolved. A human diplomat. Relaxed posture. Faint smile. "Commander Zelrun," the human said. "I was told you had questions." Zelrun hesitated. "You knew." The human chuckled softly. "We usually do." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Zelrun asked the question every species wanted answered. "What do humans see when you pass through the gate?" The human's expression changed. Not fear, not pride, but something quieter. Respect. "Sometimes," the human said slowly, "we see things that are older than stars. Things that notice us back." Zelrun's spines flattened. "And that doesn't terrify you?" The human smiled faintly. "Of course it does," they replied. "We just learned a long time ago that fear is information." The transmission ended. Zelrun leaned back, mind racing. The galaxy had assumed intelligence meant control. Humans had evolved with something else entirely. Acceptance of uncertainty. The ability to walk forward even when reality whispered don't. Authorization existed to keep others out. Humans didn't need it. They were already prepared. And beyond the gates, beyond the safe maps and clean equations, something was waiting. Something that only humans could face without breaking. They told themselves it was a mistake, that the galaxy had overreacted, that humans were not special, only lucky. After all, how different could one species really be? That single thought changed everything. The incident began quietly, as most disasters do. A mid-tier trading species known as the Rethari Combine had grown tired of waiting. For cycles, they had obeyed the authorization system at every gate, submitted scans, paid fees, endured humiliating delays. And every time, they watched human ships pass freely. No checks, no pauses, no restrictions. Resentment turned into curiosity. Curiosity turned into arrogance. The Rethari leadership convinced themselves of a dangerous lie. If humans can pass without authorization, then the authorization system must be unnecessary. They believed the galaxy was hiding something. Power, knowledge, advantage. So they made a decision that history would never forget. They would follow a human ship through the Orion Gate. Without permission, the Ret Hari cruiser Silent Accord was a marvel of engineering. Layered shields, redundant neural dampeners, reality-stabilizing cores designed to protect the crew from subspace stress. Everything galactic science could offer. As a human vessel ahead of them approached the gate, the Ret Hari captain gave the order. Maintain distance. Match trajectory. No transmissions. The moment they crossed the threshold, everything went wrong. At first, nothing happened. The crew relaxed. Sensors reported stable conditions. Space folded smoothly around them. Then a junior navigator screamed. Not in pain. In confusion. I can hear myself thinking, she cried. But it's not me. Her eyes widened as tears streamed down her face. The ship's internal gravity fluctuated slightly. Another officer dropped to his knees, clutching his head. There are too many directions, he whispered. Space isn't agreeing on which way is forward. Captain Krelthan ordered emergency stabilization. Neural dampeners surged to maximum output. It didn't help. The silence between thoughts vanished. Crew members began finishing each other's sentences incorrectly. Their memories overlapped. Emotions leaked across individuals like spilled liquid. The ship wasn't under attack. Reality itself was intruding. On the bridge, the stars outside the viewport changed. Not position, meaning. The captain stared at a familiar constellation and suddenly remembered dying there. Not imagining, remembering. He gasped and looked away. Too late. The knowledge stayed. This isn't space, he croaked. This is awareness. The AI attempted to intervene, then shut itself down without explanation. For the first time in Ret Hari history, a ship was alone with no machine guidance. Back at the Orion Gate, alarms erupted. Unauthorized transit detected. Cognitive collapse imminent. The station AI acted instantly. Human response protocols activated. A human vessel broke formation and reversed course. Something no non-human ship had ever attempted mid-transition. Inside, the human crew moved with calm urgency. Ret Hari cruiser in distress. One officer reported. They followed us. The human captain closed her eyes briefly. Of course they did, she murmured. Can we reach them? Another asked. We can, she replied. The question is whether they'll still be there when we arrive. Inside the Silent Accord, time had lost meaning. Some crew members aged rapidly, then reverted. Others experienced childhood memories that weren't theirs. One officer began speaking in a voice that wasn't Ret Hari at all, deep, layered, ancient. The ship's walls seemed farther apart than before. Or closer. No one could tell. Captain Krelthan floated free of his chair, though gravity still functioned. He wasn't floating physically, only conceptually. I can see the edges, he whispered. The edges of what we are. A presence noticed them. Not hostile, curious. The crew felt it turning its attention like a massive eye. Something vast leaned closer. Then the human ship arrived. Unlike the Ret Hari cruiser, the human vessel did not fight the distortion. It moved with it. Its hull markings glowed faintly, not from energy, but from intention. Human minds aboard focused together, not resisting, not panicking. They acknowledged the presence. And the presence paused. A human voice transmitted directly into the Ret Hari ship, not through speakers, but into awareness itself. Don't look at it. Don't try to understand. Just listen to us. Some crew obeyed. Others couldn't. Those who stared too deeply never came back. Their bodies remained alive. Their minds went somewhere else. Human boarding teams crossed the impossible gap between ships without spacesuits, because space wasn't strictly space anymore. They moved carefully, speaking softly. Breathe, a human whispered to a shaking Ret Hari engineer. You're still you. Focus on that. The engineer clung to the words like a lifeline. Humans didn't shield the Ret Hari from a presence. They anchored them. Human minds acted like gravity wells, stabilizing fractured thoughts around them. Slowly, painfully, the Ret Hari crew reassembled themselves. But the damage was done. They had seen too much. The human captain addressed the presence, not aloud but inwardly. They are not ready, she projected. They followed out of fear and envy, not understanding. The presence pulsed, an emotion humans recognized as disappointment. They withdrew. Reality reasserted itself. The ships emerged on the far side of the gate. Medical vessels swarmed the silent accord. Of its crew, 1/3 were permanently unresponsive. Another third would never leave care facilities. The rest carried scars no scan could detect. Captain Krelthan survived. Barely. When questioned by the Galactic Council, his testimony was simple. "We thought authorization was a privilege," he said hollowly. "It was a warning. From that day forward, no species ever attempted to follow humans again. Because the truth was finally clear. Humans were not allowed to pass freely because the galaxy favored them. They were allowed to pass freely because they were the only ones who could walk through the dark and still remain themselves." The Galactic Council chamber had survived wars, supernovas, and the collapse of entire empires. But it had never been silent like this. Dozens of species sat frozen around the vast circular hall, their attention locked on the holographic projection at the center. It was not a ship, not a fleet. It was a pattern, a slow, impossible movement spreading through regions of space long marked as inactive. Restricted zones, dead zones, the places humans passed through and no one else dared approach. Counselor Threxval finally broke the silence. "Confirm this data. Now." The central AI responded, its voice stripped of ceremonial calm. "Confirmation absolute. The regions beyond human access corridors are changing state." A murmur of fear rippled across the chamber. Changing state meant only one thing. Something was waking up. For millennia, the galaxy believed the void presence was a singular anomaly, an ancient guardian that tested civilizations and then withdrew. That belief had been convenient. Incomplete. The truth, sealed under layers of forgotten treaties and erased records, was far worse. The void presence was not alone. It was a lock. Human representatives entered the chamber without announcement. No escorts stopped them. No protocols delayed them. Every species watched as the humans took their seats calmly, already aware of what the others were only beginning to understand. Counselor Threxval turned toward them. "You knew." The human delegate, Dr. Mara Kincaid, did not deny it. "Yes," she said softly. "We always knew this day might come." Another counselor hissed in outrage. "You hid this from us." Dr. Kincaid met their gaze evenly. "We protected you from it." The hologram shifted. New data surfaced, ancient, reconstructed from fragments older than most civilizations. Before stars burned, before galaxies stabilized, there had been the others. Entities not bound by matter or time. They did not invade. They did not conquer. They consumed possibility. Where they passed, futures collapsed into singular outcomes, static, unchanging, dead. The universe itself recoiled from them. Reality fought back and failed. The galaxy's only defense was not weapons. It was sentience, species capable of imagination, of contradiction, fear, hope, irrationality, created instability, unpredictability. That unpredictability weakened the others, but only temporarily. The void presence had been created, or had evolved, to act as a barrier, a guardian that filtered which minds could approach the threshold where the others pressed against reality. Most species failed instantly. Their minds were too ordered, too optimized, too rigid. Humans were different. "Your species is chaotic," Counselor Threxval said bitterly. "Emotion-driven, inconsistent, violent." Dr. Kincaid nodded. "Yes." She tapped the console. The hologram displayed human history. Wars, art, self-destruction, cooperation, contradictions stacked upon contradictions. "You see flaws," she continued. "The universe sees noise." Noise. To the others, noise was poison. Humans did not resolve paradox. They lived inside it. That made them invisible. A younger council member whispered, "Then why now? Why is it waking up?" The AI answered before the humans could. Probability convergence detected. The galaxy had become too stable, too efficient, too predictable. AI governance, perfect logistics, Emotional regulation technologies. Entire species optimized for harmony. The universe was becoming quiet, and quiet attracted the others. The void presence was straining. It had held the line for eons, using human access corridors as pressure valves, allowing humans to pass, to interact, to subtly destabilize regions before collapse could occur. But now, human presence alone was no longer enough. Dr. Kincaid stood. "There's a reason authorization was never required for us," she said. "And it's not because we're special." She paused. "It's because we're compatible. Compatible with horror. Compatible with uncertainty. Compatible with standing at the edge of existence and not demanding answers." The council chamber shook as alarms flared. A new signal appeared, not from outside the galaxy. From within, a human access corridor had changed shape. The void presence was no longer maintaining it. Counselor Threxval turned slowly toward the human delegation. "What happens if it fails?" Dr. Kincaid didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was steady but heavy. "Then the galaxy won't be invaded," she said. "It will be simplified." The council made a decision no one had ever imagined. They invoked the final clause of the Treaty of Ashen Skies. Humanity was granted full operational authority over all restricted regions. Not as allies, not as soldiers, but as interfaces, as the species that could walk where thought itself broke, and come back with pieces still intact. As the meeting adjourned, a Valerian observer approached Dr. Kincaid privately. "Why you?" he asked quietly. "Out of all life, why humans?" Dr. Kincaid looked at the star map. "At some point," she said, "the universe needed a species that could be afraid and still move forward." She smiled faintly. "And we've been doing that since we learned to walk." Far beyond the gates, something vast shifted, not in anger, in recognition. Humanity was coming, and the universe was holding its breath. No announcement was made, no ceremony, no speeches, because everyone in the galaxy already knew this was not a mission meant to be celebrated. It was a mission meant to be survived, if survival was even possible. The human fleet assembled at the edge of the threshold corridor, the place where mapped space ended and perception itself began to fray. Other species watched from a safe distance, their sensors deliberately limited, their minds shielded by layers of authorization locks. Humans had none. They stood on the bridge of their ships, staring into something that was not darkness, but absence. Captain Elena Ward of the human flagship Resolve felt it immediately. Not fear, pressure, as if the universe itself was leaning closer, curious. "Status," she said calmly. "All systems nominal," her officer replied. "Reality cohesion holding for now." Ward nodded. "That's better than expected." No one laughed. Every human aboard felt it. The familiar discomfort that came before something terrible and important. The feeling humans had known since prehistory. Something is wrong. Go anyway. Behind them, the Galactic Council observed in silence. Counselor Threxval's voice was barely audible. "They're walking into something that erased civilizations." A Valerian aide whispered back, "They always do." As the fleet crossed the threshold, stars did not vanish. They lost meaning. Distance became optional. Time softened. The ships did not move through space. They moved through decision. Somewhere deep within the corridor, the others noticed. Not with eyes, with attention. Human minds reacted instantly. Not with panic, with narrative. That was the difference. Where other species demanded logic, humans created stories, frameworks to hold the unholdable. This is dangerous. This is important. We've faced worse. The thoughts didn't banish fear. They organized it. The first contact did not come as an image. It came as a question, not spoken, felt. "Why do you persist?" Several human crew members staggered as the thought pressed against them. It carried no hostility, no warmth, only inevitability. Captain Ward closed her eyes. "Because stopping has never kept us safe," she answered silently. The presence paused. That pause saved them. Further inside, the corridor fractured into branching possibilities. Human ships split, not physically, but conceptually, each crew experiencing slightly different versions of the same reality. One officer saw Earth burning. Another saw it flourishing. A third saw nothing at all. None of them collapsed. They had lived with conflicting futures their entire history. Then came the cost. A junior navigator screamed, not in terror, but in grief. "I understand it now," he whispered. "I understand why they consume futures." His brain was processing too much. Captain Ward was beside him instantly. "Look at me," she said firmly. "Not at it." Tears streamed down his face. "It's so simple to make everything quiet." Ward gripped his shoulders. "And that's why we don't," she said. "Stay here." The navigator survived. Barely. Others did not. One human vessel, Pioneer's Wake, slowed. Its crew volunteered without hesitation. "We'll anchor," their captain transmitted calmly. Anchoring meant staying behind, holding the corridor open by sheer presence, absorbing instability so others could move forward. It was a one-way decision. Captain Ward nodded once. "History will remember you." The response came softly. "We don't need it to." Pioneer's Wake faded. Not destroyed, not gone, but stretched thin across probability, becoming a stabilizing echo. The corridor steadied. The fleet moved on. The others finally revealed themselves, not as forms, but as outcomes. Civilizations reduced to perfect symmetry. Life frozen in optimal stillness. No suffering, no growth, no choice. To the others, this was mercy. To humans, it was death. Captain Ward felt anger rise, not hot but cold. "You want silence," she projected. "We want meaning." "Meaning is inefficient," came the reply. Ward smiled grimly. "So are we." Human minds surged together, not unified but aligned. Millions of contradictory thoughts, fears, hopes, memories, regrets, colliding. The noise was deafening. To the others, it was agony. They recoiled. For the first time in eons, they retreated. But retreat was not victory. The corridor trembled violently. The void presence, ancient, strained, exhausted, manifested faintly. "I cannot hold much longer," it conveyed. Ward understood. This wasn't about winning. It was about buying time. She made the final call. "All human vessels," she said quietly, "prepare to cede instability." They released it. Not weapons, not energy, but stories. Human broadcasts, art, music, laughter, arguments. Imperfect emotional signals flooding the threshold. Reality shook. The others withdrew further, repelled by overwhelming unpredictability. When the fleet finally emerged back in a mapped space, fewer ships returned. The galaxy waited. Breath held. Captain Ward's transmission reached the council. "We've pushed them back," she said. "But this isn't over." Counselor Threxval asked the question no one wanted answered. "What did it cost?" Ward looked at the stars. "People," she said. "Always people." Across the galaxy, authorization systems updated silently. Human clearance status changed. Not removed, expanded. Because now, more than ever, the galaxy needed them to walk first. Far beyond perception, the others watched the human signature fade. They did not hate it. They feared it. Because for the first time, something had chosen chaos over silence. And survived. The galaxy did not celebrate. There were no victory parades. No triumph signals. No songs of conquest. Because deep down, every species understood one terrifying truth. This had not been a victory. It had been a postponement. In the days following humanity's return from the threshold corridor, the galaxy felt different. Not damaged. Not broken. Quieter. Entire regions of space stabilized unnaturally fast, as if reality itself was afraid to move too much. Star systems held their formations with eerie precision. Random cosmic events, once common, became rare. The universe was adapting. And adaptation had a cost. The Galactic Council reconvened under Emergency Protocol Omega Continuance, a session used only when extinction-level outcomes were statistically plausible. Every species attended, even those that had never sent representatives before. Humans entered last, not because they were late, but because no one stopped them. Counselor Threxval stood, his usually rigid posture softened by exhaustion. For the first time in galactic history, he began, "We owe our continued existence to a single species." Murmurs rippled across the chamber. "This is not about gratitude," he continued. "It is about responsibility." All eyes turned to the human delegation. Dr. Mara Kincaid stood slowly. "We didn't save the galaxy," she said plainly. "We interrupted something older than it. That's all." Another counselor demanded. "Then tell us what happens next." Dr. Kincaid took a breath. "What happens next," she said, "depends on what you choose to become." The council demanded answers. Humans gave them truths. Uncomfortable ones. The others were not gone. The void presence was weakening, and the galaxy's obsession with order, efficiency, and perfect systems was accelerating the next collapse. "You are building a universe that wants to sleep," Dr. Kincaid warned. "And sleep attracts them." A crystalline species representative pulsed anxiously. "Then tell us what to do." Dr. Kincaid hesitated, then spoke the words no one expected. "Become messy." Silence followed. "Allow disagreement," she continued. "Accept emotional variance. Stop optimizing everything into predictability." The council recoiled. Chaos was weakness, or so they believed. Humans knew better. "Humans survived," Dr. Kincaid said, "because we never became efficient enough to stop making mistakes." That was when the galaxy finally understood. Humanity wasn't special because of technology, or strength, or courage. They were special because they never solved themselves. The council voted, unanimously. For the first time ever, the authorization system was rewritten. Not removed, reinterpreted. From that day forward, authorization no longer meant permission. It meant protection. Human corridors became instability zones, areas deliberately seeded with unpredictability, art, debate, imperfect governance, and emotional expression. Humanity was officially designated the adaptive species, the living variable, the necessary chaos. But the greatest decision came quietly. A clause added at the very end. In the event of final convergence, humanity shall not be commanded. It shall be followed. Humans returned to their worlds changed, not glorified, burdened. Children were taught not just science, but uncertainty. Pilots trained not just on instruments, but intuition. Artists were funded as essential infrastructure. Humanity prepared not for war, but for understanding without surrender. Years passed, then decades. The galaxy grew louder again. Arguments returned. Cultural divergences re-emerged. Imperfect systems replaced flawless ones. The others watched and hesitated. One day, deep within a restricted corridor, a human scout ship paused. Its captain felt it, the old pressure. Something was watching again. She didn't reach for weapons. She spoke. "We're still here," she said softly. "Still choosing." The presence lingered, then withdrew. Back at the Orion Gate, an alien child watched human ships pass freely. "Why don't they need authorization?" the child asked. The elder beside them answered slowly. "Because they are not trying to control the universe." The child tilted their head. "Then what are they doing?" The elder smiled faintly. "They're listening to it and arguing back." Far beyond stars, the others contemplated a universe that refused silence. A universe infected with stories. A universe that would never settle. For the first time since time began, they were uncertain, and uncertainty was the one thing they could not consume. Final line, perfect for YouTube outro. The galaxy does not let humans pass freely because they are trusted. It lets them pass freely because when existence itself begins to break. Only humans can walk into the dark and refuse to be quiet.